Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up here in Week 4 of this 2021 season, and that's going to be between the Kansas State Wildcats and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Big matchup coming up here in the Big 12 this weekend. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Last week, Kansas State had a big win over a talented Nevada team. 38-17 was the final score there. So overall, solid win for Kansas State. I mean, once again, Nevada is obviously a Mountain West team. They're not a Power 5 team, but Nevada does have talent. So overall, solid win for the Wildcats last week. They are 3-0. As for Oklahoma State, they had a great win against Boise State last week, 21-20. So both teams got big wins over Mountain West opponents in Week 3, and both teams are also 3-0. Kansas State also cracked the top 25 this past week, and they are now at number 25 for this matchup against Oklahoma State. But the Cowboys, of course, I mean, if you look at their first couple of games, I mean, they played an FCS opponent, and they also played Tulsa. Two close matchups. They shouldn't have been close. I mean, Tulsa, of course, lost to an FCS team previously before playing Oklahoma State. So it was kind of a slow start for Oklahoma State. I was kind of uncertain about this team, but Oklahoma State, they had a great win against Boise State, and I do feel much more confident about Oklahoma State after Week 3 than I did, say, after Week 2. So, yeah, Oklahoma State, this is a talented team for sure. But same thing for Kansas State. They played pretty well as well in Week 3. Game will be on Saturday, September 25th, Stillwater, Oklahoma, 6 p.m. Central Time, so it will be an evening game in Stillwater. Spread currently has Oklahoma State by 6, so the spread is going with Oklahoma State pretty heavily here. I'd expect the spread to be much closer, especially considering you got a top 25 team coming to town, which, I mean, Kansas State has played pretty well so far this season as well, but over-under is 46, so the over-under is pretty low here for a Big 12 game. And the ESPN FPI is going Oklahoma State 56.3%. Series history, obviously these two teams have played each other a lot in their history, but Oklahoma State leads at 41-26. Win streak is the Cowboys by 2. And in the last 10 matchups, it's about 50-50. Oklahoma State leads at 6-4 though, so they have the slight edge there in the last 10 matchups. Here's your stat comparison for this matchup. Kansas State's got 31 points per game so far this season, 15 points allowed, 148 pass yards a game, 225 rush yards. So obviously, K-State so far this season has done very well in the rushing corps. Passing-wise, I mean, it's been a little bit different. We've seen Skylar Thompson and Will Howard split time, and Skylar Thompson unfortunately got injured. So we're not going to see him for a few weeks. But, I mean, Skylar Thompson, credit to him, he's been with Kansas State for a long time. So it's definitely a change having someone else at quarterback for Kansas State right now. But for yards allowed so far, 225 passing, and then 54 rushing for K-State. So rushing defense has played pretty well so far for the Wildcats. As for Oklahoma State, 24 points per game, 19 points allowed, 190 pass yards a game, 146 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 233 passing, 95 rushing. So both teams have been playing pretty well so far this season. I mean, especially in the rushing defense area. I mean, both teams have held their opponents under 100 rushing yards on average so far this season. Some key points for this one, both teams obviously are 3-0. I mean, a solid start for the Wildcats so far this season at a 3-0 record. And I like the Wildcats so far this season. I mean, I like how this team is playing. And overall, I mean, they do have a couple of injuries, of course. But overall, despite the injuries, Kansas State has been playing pretty well. But this game will prove a lot about Kansas State. I mean, this is your first big challenge on the road. Obviously, you played at Nevada last week. But Nevada is a bit different than a Power 5 opponent. And Oklahoma State is by far the toughest opponent that you've played so far this season. And you're also going on the road to Stillwater. So, and Oklahoma State, obviously, when it's a packed house, can be a very tough place to play. So you got to keep that in mind. Oklahoma State, big win against Boise State last week. First two games didn't look the best for Oklahoma State. I talked about that a little bit earlier. I mean, obviously, you played Tulsa, and that game was pretty close. It should not have been that close. And then you played an FCS opponent as well the week before that, which should not have been, once again, as close either. But Oklahoma State, they look against Boise State, so overall I've got a bit more faith in this team now that they got a solid win under their belt. But this is a big chance for Oklahoma State to prove themselves as well. Get a big conference win against a now ranked team. This could be a good win here for Oklahoma State, but at the same time, I mean, Kansas State needs it too. This is a team that's playing pretty well, and just to keep the momentum going, Kansas State also needs a big win here. But that being said, let's get to the prediction for this matchup. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, one of the bigger games coming up in the Big 12 in Week 4. And I've got Oklahoma State getting the win against Kansas State at home. Without a doubt, this should be a pretty close game here. I mean, you got Oklahoma State and Kansas State, two pretty equally talented teams. And, I mean, Oklahoma State being at home was one of the main reasons why I went with the Cowboys here. Like, if, for example, Kansas State was at home, I'd probably be picking Kansas State just because of how close of a matchup this one should be. But yeah, Oklahoma State 28-24, I'm going to go with them. Probability 55% towards the Cowboys. So once again, it will be a close one. And this one was a pretty tough one to predict as well. I mean, you could basically do a coin toss for this matchup just based off of how equal of teams these teams are skill-wise. But over-under is 46, so I'm taking the over in this matchup. And I do think we'll see the over. I'm pretty confident with that. I mean, you got two teams that, I mean, they can score points, obviously. But, I mean, defensively, both teams are pretty good as well. But I think the offenses will prevail. We'll see a moderate scoring matchup. I don't think we'll see a shootout by any means, but I do think we'll see enough for me to be able to take the over here in this matchup. So, yeah, that being said, 28-24, I'm going with the Cowboys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.